Put the needle on the record.
Brunson stops on a dime, launches. Oh yeah! Jalen Brunson buries it.
They give it to B. All right, here it is. Bernard looking for 50, and he's got it. Back-to-back 50-point games for Bernard King.
Now has Starks for Ewing. Ewing with the spin. Ewing, yes!
1 8 seconds remaining. The Knicks lead by 1. The Knicks news is dropping fast and furious, just like those Knicks three-pointers. This is Tim's York Knicks Unleashed. Want to talk about, of course, the 119-104 win over the Charlotte Hornets. Want to talk about Josh Hart. Want to talk about OG Anunoby. Want to talk about Giannis. Oh, lordy jeez, there's so much to talk about. After the Knicks kind of had after the Knicks lost to the Boston Celtics, there was thought processes, there was speculation that we are just still not that contender. We are still not at that point where we need to be, but like I keep telling people, it's early. Yeah, we lost that game to Boston in Boston 123-117, but Jalen Brunson had one of those nights. He's going to have them every once in a while, but he had one of those nights. But what do the Knicks do? Of course, they rebound quickly and go up against those Charlotte Hornets. Of course, at this point in time now, it's the 6-16 Charlotte Hornets. But we have another test against the Utah Jazz tomorrow night. Then another game December 7th against the Orlando Magic. Then we have the quarterfinals for the NBA Cup on Tuesday the 9th. And then the Knicks aren't seen again until December 18th. So we have a plethora of games running in at us, quick and furious. But you know what? We're doing what we need to do. We're figuring it out. I still have all the confidence and all the faith in the world in Mike Brown. The Knicks are, of course, sitting at 14-7. Josh Hart the other night, and Josh Hart to me is literally the heartbeat of this team. I understood why they were bringing him off the bench. He's still coming back from that finger surgery, but you can see a difference in the club the moment you injected him back into the starting lineup. And it's not just his play, it's his leadership. And of course, after the loss to the Boston Celtics, Hart came out and said, we get bored with what's working, what's winning basketball. I felt like we got bored doing that. And then when we start doing whatever, playing bad offense, giving up anything defensively, we've got to make sure we're locked in on making sure success of the team is the number one objective. I kind of think that has to be pointed at the 3 pointers. And I keep saying this because I go to many Knick home games now. I'm going to be there probably on Sunday, probably be there, when they come back around on the 18th. But it's one of those things that this team lives and dies by the three. They build up these huge leads. I go back to last Sunday's game where they had 41 points in the first. They shot 66% from the 3-point line. And then all of a sudden in that second quarter against the Toronto Raptors, the whole thing just fucking collapsed. And it was almost like they couldn't hit the ocean if they fell out of a fucking boat. But you know what? By that second half, they started figuring out how to play basketball again. They started figuring it out. Listen, you know what? Not every shot has to be a 3-pointer. You are allowed to shoot the rock within 2 feet of the basket. It's okay. Josh Hart also came out and says, it's human nature sometimes when you get these big leads, you're up by 13, you're up by 20, something like that. Let's figure out a way to score, how to get mine. Not in a bad way. That's human nature. You've got to try to combat that. We've got to try to make sure that even when we're up by 15, we get up by 20. We continue to push the pace, continue to play fast, continue to play our basketball. And I think that's a great way to put it. I think that's a great way to sum it up by the Hart man. I really do. You have to find a way to continue to score. You have to find a way. To me, like I said before, this is a rhythm and flow offense. This is the type of offense that Mike Brown was a part of in Golden State. But if you watch those Golden State teams, not every shot was a 3-pointer. I remember Sunday against the Raptors in that second quarter going, don't shoot the fucking 3. But of course they did. This is a long season. This team currently 6-3-6 in the road, but they are 14-7, like I said. We're going to get OG Anunoby back sooner than we possibly thought, and we're going to talk about it in a minute. But Josh Hart also said, I think it's frankly just kind of stupidity to play one style of basketball, get up by 15, get up by 20 point leads, and then abandon what got you there, he admits. We've got to make sure we continue to focus on that and build off of it. In other words, you got to do different things. Sooner or later, people are going to collapse on the three. Sooner or later, you are going to have a team, get in your face. Sooner or later, they're going to abandon guarding the big bodega underneath. You're going to have to figure this out, and you're going to have to figure out what works. You're going to have to figure out how you can continue to move the ball around, get the best look, and put your playmakers in a position in reference to Brunson and of course, the big cat. And you got to figure out a way to put them in a position where they can score. And that's what you have to do. And that's kind of what Hart is saying. And you know what? You have to understand that this is still a work in progress. I know everyone wants to move on. I know everyone wants to take a look at getting maybe Giannis, but you're going to have to blow up the team to do this. But the Knicks did get some good news. According to NBA insider Robert Morrows, who broke the news on social media, its critical update says the New York Knicks, OG Anunoby, is targeting a return to December 7th home game against the Orlando Magic. That's big news for the Knicks. They have been playing a little bit depleted. Of course, OG Anunoby suffered that left hamstring strain. I think it was on November 14th during the first quarter against Miami. He grabbed it after missing up a layup on a fast break and immediately went out of the game. He's been slowly working his way back. On November 30th, they were saying that he had progressed to controlling contact workouts on 3-on-3 scrimmages. Now, OG, like I said, he's been consistently what we needed him to be since he's been here. He's averaging 15.8, 5.6 rebounds, 2.2 assists, while shooting 47.6% from the field. He is a guy that's got that two-way impact. He is the guy that I think is critical to the Knicks' success this year, because not only is he going to give you that athleticism, we know for a fact that he's going to be a D guy. He's basically a two-way weapon. Now, while the team has gone 5-2 without him, that to me is a blip. I don't think, like I said, I think this team has enough parts. It has a good enough starting, or I should say a good enough starting five, and a good enough depth in reference to having 8 guys are playing an 8, even potentially 9-man rotation. And I think we can look at it that way. Cause like I said, I love Miles McBride. I would like to see him come off the bench more. Jordan Clarkson, he just needs to find a consistent rhythm. Tyler, we're still going to have to figure out the backup point guard position. I can't sit there with Tyler and look at Tyler with confidence now that Landry Shamet is out for a while with his dislocated shoulder. I can't look at him with full confidence to be that scorer, to be that facilitator coming off the bench. But like I said, when you're still rolling out Bridges, Hart, Karl-Anthony Towns, Brunson, and McBride, and you still have Clarkson coming off the back end, I like Gershon. Gershon, to me, has just got to figure out his role on this team. He's been a little bit of a disappointment in my mind in reference to the way he has been playing. But like I said, I think he's playing himself into this team. And I think that's the way he's going to have to, look at this. And that's the way he's going to have to kind of figure it out. And I think he can do it. Like I said, I think he's going to, after watching him play in Philadelphia a bunch of times last year, I do think it's going to be a interesting combination. And like I said, with the Utah Jazz coming in tomorrow at 7:30, it's another test for the Knicks. It's another question that, can they continue to keep that home success and those home fires burning? I think they can. Now, one thing that we would be remiss if we didn't discuss is, of course, Giannis. Giannis's agent came out the other day and basically spoke to the Bucks and said, "Hey, listen, we got to figure out what's going on here. We got to discuss the future of Giannis in Milwaukee." And it's one of those things that he is a player on a different level. And he is a guy that if he came to New York in the right circumstance, could be that catalyst, that push into not only a later round drive into the playoffs, but into the NBA championship. Giannis, of course, on Wednesday, it was yesterday. It was Wednesday. He exited with a right calf strain in the first quarter, and that was in the Bucks 113-109 win. But he is a guy that if we bring him into the Big Apple and we keep some of these pieces, it's going to be something different. It's going to be something that is going to be crazy. But the problem is there are a lot of problems. There are a lot of problems with his trades because of the fact that the Knicks gave up 5 first rounders for, of course, Bridges. And per the NBA rules, you cannot have or give up consecutive first-round picks. And I love it because that rule was instituted because of the New York Knicks. So you're going to have to find a way to make this fit. And the first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to move on from Karl-Anthony Towns. That's going to have to be included in the package. There's going to have to be another significant player added, maybe OG Anunoby or Bridges. But which one can you move on from? Bridges can't be traded until February due to his recent contract extension. So if you're going to make that move and OG Anunoby's coming back, are you going to have to package Karl-Anthony Towns and OG Anunoby to go get Giannis? The Knicks are going to have to throw in some first-round picks, but the Knicks are limited in first-round picks. You know, they are right now. They have the 2026 Wizards first-round pick, but that is protected. They're not good. They can do pick swaps, I would have to say, and you could do pick swaps in either 2028, 2030, and 2032. And the only thing I don't like about that is the fact if they try to do pick swaps like that, especially in 2020 and 2032, we don't know what this team's going to look at. And also, you got to look at the salary cap situation, which is kind of tight. You know, we're hitting where we don't want to be. So you're gonna have to. That's gonna add to the complexity of the trade itself. And of course, Giannis is coming out with with the calf strain. It's just a calf strain, but it's one of those things that there's so many moving pieces that the Knicks would have to figure out just to move on from where we are and get someone like Giannis. I don't know, because I also think the Lakers, the Raptors, especially the way they're playing, and maybe the Rockets could be involved in this situation. And you also got to watch out for those fucking Miami Heats. Those Miami Heat guys are just fucking killers. Now, Giannis, of course, says his destination is New York, but who doesn't want to go to the Big Apple? So, I mean, I figure this, unless you're going to make a move right away, you're going to have to do it with OG Anunoby and Karl-Anthony Towns. If you're going to wait, you're going to have to wait till February to do it with Bridges. And like I said, and the one thing about the Wizard pick, the one thing I didn't like about that trade, that it's a top 8 protected pick. And at this point in time, which will eventually convert into 2 second rounders if they don't get the pick this year, the Knicks. I always thought that was kind of a stupid trade by the Knicks, but that's just the way it is. You may have to get a third team involved also. And are you going to have to maybe move Bridges, Towns, and OG Anunoby? And honestly, if the Bucks are a team that looks like they're going to start tanking, why would you want to take on the contracts of Towns and OG Anunoby anyways? There is so many moving parts to that trade. I don't even know what to talk about. But you know what, Knick fans? This is Tim. This is New York Knicks Unleashed. Hope you're going to enjoy this. We're going to try to do this almost a daily pod with Knick information left and right. We're also going to put it up on the YouTube channel as soon as we get the YouTube channel situated. Hope you enjoy the new pod cover because I enjoyed having the team make it. So, as always, this is Tim. This is New York Knicks Unleashed, and I'm out of here.